Hello, everybody. It's Peter McLaughlin with another Friday Live at 5. I do these shows every Friday now at 5 o'clock Eastern. So if you're new, please mark it on your calendar that they will be done every Friday if I can keep coming up with topics. So this is our 10th week. We're doing pretty good. And that kind of leads me into what I love to say at the start of each one of these lives, which is number one, the questions. The comments and the questions that you add to this discussion really makes it more of a discussion. It makes it way more dynamic and interesting than if I'm just kind of rambling on. So please, please, please feel free to comment, to ask questions, even to ask, tough questions. Those are and can be a lot of fun, and they're certainly, the questions represent a learning experience for me, because sometimes I'm not even thinking about a particular angle or a particular question. Someone asks that question and it makes it way, way, way more interesting. And then number two, with the doing it every Friday, a lot of people have been great about sending in some ideas. And a number of those ideas I put onto my ever-growing list of different topics to tackle on these Friday Live at 5s. So if you have ideas, if there are things that you would like to see for another Live at 5 sometime in the future, please submit those to me, because it really helps a lot. And as I say, keep those questions and those comments coming. So today we're talking about, obviously, stopping self-sabotage as it applies to weight loss. So many people that I've worked with over the last 14 years as a hypnotist and as a life coach have told me, they'll get going on a weight loss program, they'll be on a particular kind of diet, they'll be working out, they'll be dropping the weight, everything's going really well, and then all of a sudden, boom, it all falls apart. And they usually describe feeling angry at themselves, feeling upset at themselves, feeling like a failure. And then the cycle just continues. They go on with their kind of old habits. They gain actually sometimes more weight than what they had lost before. And then maybe they find another process, another diet, another way of going about this, and the cycle continues itself. And this thing about sabotage is really important. And the first thing I want to talk about is, what does sabotage actually mean? Well, I just happen to have here, if you can see this wooden model of a shoe. And I don't know how old this is, but I'm assuming that it's an antique. And the French word for shoe is sabot, S-A-B-O-T. And so sabotage means to take a shoe, if you're a worker and you don't like your employer, and throw it into the gears of the machines to essentially, on purpose, destroy or undermine the operation. And I know that this is what it feels like. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to this if you ever felt like you sabotaged yourself, in the case of weight loss. That it feels like you're undermining yourself. Everything's going really well, as I said before, and then all of a sudden, maybe you go out with your friends and you have the intention of ordering kind of the right kind of food, maybe not drinking or something else, and maybe you get into the swing of things, other people are eating, maybe you have a drink or two, and before you know it, you've had this huge meal, you've had dessert, and now you get home and you think, well, I blew it, so I might as well keep eating. And it involves oftentimes guilt. It involves shame. And the problem with this is twofold. Number one, when you get angry at yourself, as I've mentioned before in some of my other Friday Live at 5s talking about weight loss, when you get mad at yourself, when you feel shame, when you feel guilt, your body automatically moves into a stress response. So your autonomic nervous system has two modes. It has the sympathetic mode of the autonomic nervous system, which is the fight or flight. We all know what that's like when we get scared and our heart starts pounding and maybe we feel, we're perspiring and our muscles get tight, our jaw gets tight. We have different responses, but I think we all understand what that is. The other mode, if you're not in fight or flight, is rest and digest. That word digest is pretty important when you're talking about being able to process and digest the food that you're eating. Well, when you move into the stress response, like when you get out of the shower and you look in the mirror and you hate what you see and you get angry at yourself, or you come home from that dinner with friends where you overindulged and you feel guilty and you feel ashamed, and maybe you go to deal with that guilt and shame by eating some more ice cream. Well, By feeling those feelings and moving into the sympathetic mode of the autonomic nervous system, the fight or flight response, you're actually making things worse for two reasons. Number one, you're dumping adrenaline. That's what causes you to feel alert and makes your heart start pounding. It prepares you to run or to fight. But number two, you're dumping cortisol, another hormone, into your bloodstream. And this is the interesting thing about cortisol. It tells your body, hold onto all available fat. This is an evolutionary survival mechanism. So go back in your mind 500 years ago, and let's say that there was a famine. The main breadwinner died. The crops failed. There was a war. There was a fire. You and I would have gone into a stress response. We would have dumped adrenaline into our bloodstream, helping us to survive in the moment if there was some immediate threat, like our village is being raided. But it would also dump the cortisol into our bloodstream. Now, what is that going to do for us 500 years ago? Well, if food is going to be in short supply over the winter, we now have a little more fat on our belly that might actually get us through a lean winter when otherwise maybe we would have died. Now, the problem is, in our modern times, we don't have any shortage of our access to food, generally speaking. But we have way more stressors. Looking at bills, dealing with your boss, dealing with your significant other, dealing with your kids, dealing with the in-laws, and doing things like watching the news. If it bleeds, it leads. It's going to actually put you into a stress response. So getting mad at yourself, feeling guilt and feeling shame when you get out of the shower and you don't like what you see in the mirror, is causing that dump of cortisol, making the problem worse. And then the second piece of that is that when you feel really bad, what do? You often turn to food. We call it comfort food, for crying out loud. Because while you're eating that ice cream, while you're eating that, the extra helping of mashed potatoes, you're kind of distracting yourself. You're filling what is being perceived as an empty void inside of yourself. And so for that short period of time, it feels better, but then afterwards you feel guilty. So the reason I bring all of this up is to lead into this concept of self-sabotage, because I don't think that's actually what it is. And also to share with you what I think is step number one in dealing with what we call self-sabotage, or in dealing with losing weight in general. And that is compassion. Having compassion for yourself, right? So if there's a way, and I know there is, that you can love yourself, regardless of what you look like, regardless of what you ate that day, then you're not going to be dumping the cortisol into your bloodstream. Your need to eat comfort food is going to be diminished. And I don't say this is a panacea. I say this is step one for any kind of effort to lose weight, and more importantly, to sustain that weight loss. Okay, so let's go back to self-sabotage. Sabot, shoe, throw it into the machine on purpose. It's like, it's an act of destruction on purpose. I don't think when people say they keep sabotaging themselves when they're trying to lose weight, I don't think that's actually what it is. This term that we have in our language, this phrase that we have in our language called, it's parts. So part of me wants to do this. Part of me doesn't want to do this. Part of me likes this person. Part of me doesn't trust this person. So we already think of ourselves as different parts or different components of ourselves. So at a minimum, we're all aware of this, a conscious mind, a subconscious mind. Subconscious mind is the vast majority of the processing power of your brain. It represents literally 1,000,000 times more power than your conscious mind, and it never goes to sleep. It's never not paying attention. So I say that what self-sabotage really is that it is part of you. Could be your subconscious mind, could be some other part of you, and we're not really sure even what to call that. Higher self, inner child, whatever. And that other part of you is actually trying to protect you. let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about, and then we'll turn to some of the comments and questions that are coming in, which is awesome. I just want to clap for that one. Yes, because that makes these Friday Lives at 5 way more interesting. All right, so what would be some examples of your subconscious mind, let's say, this other part of you that you're not really aware of trying to protect you? Well, I wrote down a few of these ideas before we started today. One of them could be, a big one, it's trying to keep you safe. So as I've mentioned before, and what a lot of people are familiar with, is that if, God forbid, particularly a woman, but it could be a man too, suffered some kind of abuse, like inappropriate abuse when they were kids, it may be that the subconscious mind is trying to create armor, an extra layer between them and the outside world in order to keep them safe. It could be that the subconscious mind has this perception that if the body is larger and heavier, that they won't be attractive and subject to unwanted advances. It could also be that, sort of like armor is what I was trying to get there before. It could also be that a person is feeling unsafe when they don't fit in with the crowd. And one of the concepts I've come across recently, which instantly hit me as absolutely 100% true, is that when we feel uncertain, when we feel afraid, when we're in that fight or flight mechanism, we have a hardwired aspect of our brain that tells us that being with the herd, we're herd animals, being with the herd is the safe place to be. And so standing out from the herd might be success. So next week, you can mark it in your calendar, and I'll talk about it at the end of this one. I'm going to be talking about fear of failure, fear of success, because I feel like it piggybacks with this topic really well. But succeeding might be an example, subconsciously I'm talking about, of standing out from the herd, being by yourself. And that can have a lot of negative consequences for a person, right? They can feel like they lost their friends. They lost how they fit into their social circle. So that need to fit in subconsciously could be driving this mechanism, which I'm saying is protective, because the subconscious mind is saying, we don't want you to be alone. We don't want you to feel lonely. We don't want you to go down that road you went down before when you became all depressed. We want you to feel like you fit in. It could also be that you had a powerful subconscious connection to, let's say, a deceased relative. Or maybe all of the men or all of the women in your extended family are heavy. So people would say, oh, it's genetic. Well, there's another concept called the family mind. So growing up with the same food, the same customs, but also as children, what do we do with our parents and other caregivers? The people we admire, the people we rely on to keep us safe, because why? We want to fit in, is that we tend to model them subconsciously. So it could be that by having a heavier set frame, a person feels more connected with their social circle or with their immediate or with their extended family. So if you start to view and transpose or transform that phrase, self-sabotage, in your mind, you'll go from, I'm ruining my own life on purpose, I'm taking the sabot and I'm throwing it into the machine. If you move from that to compassion, there's a reasonable self-protecting mechanism that part of me is employing in order to keep me safe or to somehow help me. It will mean it's less likely you're going to get angry at yourself. It's less likely you're going to feel guilt and shame. And if that happens, you're not dumping the cortisol and you're not having the same drive necessarily to eat comfort food. So I hope this long-winded discussion has helped, at least to begin this Friday Live at 5, with talking about defining self-sabotage and giving you a framework to begin your own process of dealing with these issues. So I'm going to turn to the comments, because there's a whole bunch of them, fantastic, and we'll just sort of jump in there and see what's what, and if there are some questions, Shannon Marie Routledge, hey Peter, great to catch you live. It's great to catch you too. Oh, here we go. It's also from Shannon, so she's got a question here. Do you have any testimonials from people who've had success losing weight using your hypnosis? What's the success rate with audio hypnosis? Okay, great questions. And the first part of that is really easy to answer, which is, yeah, I have a lot of testimonials. If you go onto my website, there's a section which has testimonials. And also, if you just, probably even better and more to the point, if you go onto my YouTube channel, BlueSky Hypnosis, and you just go to my weight loss content, especially the content that has a lot of views. So, and I'm saying a lot for me, everybody, it's relative all over YouTube, right? So some of my content has north of 500,000 views. I would go there first for the weight loss stuff and just go through the comments and just read what people have to say. And you will find plenty of people who are saying, oh my God, this really helped me a lot. And a lot of them will really detail their success and their experiences. Now, nothing works for everyone all the time. So you're probably going to find comments on there too that said, this didn't work for me. Okay, that's fine. Because as I say, I don't think anything works for everyone all the time. But you will be able to read those testimonials right there as part of a particular piece of content. So yes, testimonials absolutely have that. Now, about success rate. So that would be all anecdotal, okay? And there's two kinds of anecdotes that I can share with you. One would be the YouTube channel, where there's obviously, orders of magnitude more volume because I'm just one guy, and the audios can be listened to by 500,000 or more people. So with that one, it's really hard to say because most people who go onto YouTube don't even, like a video, let alone comment. So the comments, I think, represent the tip of the iceberg. And I think by reading through those, you can probably start to extrapolate how successful that could be. Is there a mathematical percentage or rate? Nope. I don't have the wherewithal to do that. I'm not really sure how I would do it unless I sent out surveys or I don't know. I'm just not a statistician and I'm not so interested or good at math. The second one would be people I work with, the people that I work with one-on-one. So those people, what I can tell you for sure, is the people who are committed to doing this are by far and away the most successful. Because one of the phrases that NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, has about failure is that you essentially can't fail until you quit. And that what we call failure is really feedback. It's giving you more information. So when I work with someone one-on-one, if they have an open mind, which I think they have to work with me because I do stuff like past life regressions, meeting your spirit guides, life between life regressions, and so forth. If they have courage, meaning they're willing to go in their mind, hypnotic regression, back to old traumas and heal them, and most importantly, if they are persistent, if they don't give up, then I feel super confident that we can be very successful. And if it's a scenario like that where we keep working together, it's not just they come once and then I never see them again, or they come once or twice, maybe 3 times, and I never see them again. And if they're willing to do the homework I give them. So we do the work in session where we're really focusing in on 2 things. One is resolving the old traumas that are related to this issue and reframing what the subconscious mind is doing in the subconscious so that it's not trying to protect anymore, sabotage. And that when they go home, they're diligent about listening to the homework, listening to the audio files that I give them. I've got 20-something, 25, 27 YouTube videos on weight loss. I've got other videos and audios that are not on YouTube. And so I pick out 1 or 2 that at that stage I think are right for them to listen to. Now, if they never listen to them, they're not going to be as successful as if they do the homework. So if we factor in they're persistent, then I have a high degree of confidence that they're going to be successful. And that I'm just throwing this out there as a percentage because I have no research to back it up. It's all anecdotal. I would say is probably 80% successful, 80 to 90, somewhere in there. And the other thing that my clients will often say, and they joke with each other because they start referring their friends, is, yeah, I went to him for weight loss, but I got all these other things in addition to weight loss. Because weight loss is tied in with other things. I described the whole mechanism of cortisol to you before. So if a person's chronically stressed, and most people in this culture are, and you're able to help them resolve that chronic stress, then what happens? They're not dumping cortisol, they're not emotionally eating, their relationship with their husband or their wife probably gets better, the relationship with their kids gets better, they probably sleep better, which helps the weight loss. So you probably see where I'm going here. So very long answer to an excellent 2 questions, and thank you for asking them. All right. Okay, so here we've got someone, Andy Pandy Fish. I've lost 19 kilograms listening to his videos each night over the last 4 months. There you go. That's awesome. So somebody jumped right in there and gave you a testimonial, which is fantastic. And because you guys are sort of connected here on this forum, if you have any other questions for Andy Pandy, he might be willing to answer them for you. So thank you for that. Thanks for jumping right in there with that. That's fantastic. Here we go with Tara KC. I have a binge eating disorder. I hate it so bad. Okay. All right. So if we were working together, I would want to know something really important, which is, what is the emotional reason? And I'm not saying you even know this consciously. What is the emotional reason that's driving this binge eating disorder? Because I say, and this is just me talking, and by the way, I've got disclaimers on my on my YouTube videos, I've got them on this program. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist. Please take everything I say with a grain of salt. It's coming from me as a hypnotist. See your doctor and your psychologist for professional advice. There we go. Okay. So if it were me working with you, I would want to know, what is the deeper emotion? And it's probably a powerful one, because the worse or the more acute your issue is, probably the deeper and more powerful the emotional trauma is that's driving it. So something, as I said before, is driving that behavior. It's not sabotage, it's self-protection. But it may be a misguided kind of self-protection that your subconscious mind is engaging in. So one of the first questions I always ask my clients when I'm doing the one-on-one is, what are the traumas from your past? What are you aware of that happened in your past that is traumatic? Now, what does that mean? That would be any kind of abuse as a child. It could be sexual abuse, it could be verbal abuse, it could be other kinds of physical abuse. It could be the death of someone close to you, a family relative. It could even be a pet or a friend, someone like that. It could be an accident. It could be some other form of violence. But I'd want to know what those traumas are, because those could easily be related to your underlying issue. I'd also want to know, do you have recurring dreams? Have you ever had recurring dreams? What is the weirdest dream you've ever had? Because that can sometimes lead us into what the subconscious mind is trying to communicate to you. Now, we're expecting the subconscious mind to communicate to us like I'm talking to you, or like, reading the New York Times or watching the news or something, but that's not how it communicates. It communicates more like in the form of art, metaphor. And the more you begin to immerse yourself into how the subconscious mind communicates, the more you can begin to see patterns, the more you can begin to understand and discern different things that are happening. So for example, today I was working with a client. Everything's remote now, online. And she was talking about a dream where there was a rat that was right in her face, which is kind of gross, right? Kind of horrifying. None of us, I think, loves rats. And I thought, okay, what is the spiritual meaning of a rat? I didn't know what the spiritual meaning of a rat was, but while we were working together, we weren't doing hypnosis at this point. I looked up the spiritual meaning of a rat. And what I found out was a rat is a symbol, a spiritual animal totem that basically says you are ready to clear out the clutter in your life, particularly the old emotional clutter, which is precisely where this client is right now, maybe 3 or 4 sessions in. So Even the dreams can have powerful meaning. And so it might be good to start, writing down your dreams. If animals come to you, look up what the animal totem is and see if that relates to what's going on. And think in terms of metaphor. So a dream could be an actual event that occurred earlier in your life. It could be a past life, or it could be a metaphor. And if it's a metaphor, we usually just push it away and go, oh, it's a weird dream. But the weirder, the better, because your subconscious mind is trying to communicate with you. So back to your original point that you have a binge eating disorder and it's so bad. The so bad part tells me there's something equally as powerful buried in your subconscious mind, and that thing is probably driving that need. Now, could it be the need to protect yourself? Could it be the need to fit in? Could it simply be that your subconscious mind is trying so hard to distract you from something that it doesn't want to rise to the surface, that it's creating this binge eating disorder? Not really sure. But I hope that these comments, what I've talked about, has helped you start to think about why that's there. And maybe some of the things we've talked about today will give you a clue or an insight into how to begin going about dealing with this, which actually leads into the next thing I want to talk about. It was one of the bullet points that I put on the promo for this. Excuse me. I talked about the central pillar. What is the central pillar for overcoming what we call self-sabotage? And I kind of alluded to it before when I talked about compassion. When you get out of the shower, you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see, and you might get disgusted, you might get angry, you might feel guilt, you might feel shame, you might feel some other negative emotion. And we know what that does now with cortisol and how that affects your weight. But compassion, I think, is the first step toward the central pillar being self-love, right? Because you're allowed to love yourself regardless of what you look like. I want to just post up, let's see, get rid of this other guy here, and post up this one. So images like this are ubiquitous in our culture. When I used to teach Shakespeare, I used to be a professional actor, and I used to teach Shakespeare to 8th graders. And in the research to teach Shakespeare to 8th graders, I learned that the average person living in Elizabethan times, 500 some odd years ago, would have seen fewer words in their lifetime than would be contained in one issue of the Sunday New York Times. If you now consider the images we're exposed to, television, movies, billboards, magazines, and your laptop and your tablet, and especially your phone, you're being deluged with these images. And a human being, as I mentioned before, we are kind of hardwired to mimic and model. So when images like this are presented to you hundreds of thousands of times, your subconscious mind starts to get the idea that's how you're supposed to look. And if you don't look that way, there's something wrong with you. And P.S., this is how marketers, advertising in particular, often works. They often present a problem and then they present the solution. Well, by presenting the problem, you may not have even thought you had a problem, and now you do. Right? So part of it is being able to love yourself, even if you don't look in some way that has been predetermined for you. I don't even think we decide what these images are supposed to look like. We just swim in the same sea and we hold on to this. But the truth is that you don't have to look a certain way to love yourself. You can love yourself first. And if you love yourself first, then looking a certain way won't be as important to you. And it will be less likely you'll criticize yourself. Because we're all unique. And the way you look when you're 17 is probably necessarily different than the way you look when you're 37 and when you're 67 and when you're 97. You know, each stage of life, I think, has a different prototype, if you will, of how we're supposed to look. Our natural height, our bone structure, our genetics, all of those things. And one thing I can say for sure is that the happier you are, the more you love yourself, the kinder you are to yourself, the less stress you'll feel, the less stress eating you'll do, the better you'll sleep at night, and you will become more of a perfect version of you, rather than trying to be a carbon copy of someone else. So, as I do with everything, a really long way of saying that self-love is key to overcoming self-sabotage, or what we call self-sabotage. And you are allowed to love yourself no matter what you look like. Straight up. All right, let's see what else we have in here. Someone else, let's see, binge eating, okay. Here's Kay Robinson. She's frustrated about something. I've been listening to your meditations for this. It does help to keep me calmer, but I still can't seem to stop myself when I have a small slip from becoming a huge break. So frustrating. Okay, Kay, that makes perfect sense. I understand. So the first thing that you could try is you could go onto my channel and look for the videos that pertain to self-love. Specifically, I have one called I Am Worthy of Love. I am worthy of love. And just start listening to that. Just start letting it flood into your mind. Because that getting upset with yourself when you have a slip up seems to me to indicate that maybe this track, maybe this kind of radical self-love, and I've got other ones too, that's not the only one, of loving yourself might be really important to you. If for some reason that doesn't work, the option always exists to use a pendulum. I have a video on my YouTube channel about how to use a pendulum. And the pendulum is an ideomotor tool that can reveal to you, once you learn how to use it, and the video teaches you how to do that, it can reveal to you what the blockage is. You can start asking yes/no questions and get an answer, which is, okay, do I overeat, or is my other issue because of a trauma that occurred to me earlier in my present life? No. Trauma that occurred to me in a past life? Yes. Okay, now you know where it resides. So maybe you go and do some of the past life regression videos and see if that helps. If that doesn't help, you always have me. I'm always a resource. You can work with me if you've got the time and you've got the inclination, you can always do that. Or you can work with somebody else that does this kind of work. These are all possibilities, but narrowing down what's causing that is always key. Just think of like car mechanics. You know, you bring your car in, it's making some weird noise. Their job is to diagnose by isolating what's causing the problem. Because once you know what's causing the problem, you can fix that. Once you fix that, you don't have the car making noise anymore. Because the noise the car is making isn't the problem, it's a symptom of the problem. Something deeper, under the hood, deep within the engine is causing that problem, and that's what you have to find, right? I hope all that makes sense to you. Thanks for asking the question, or making the comment, because it really was a comment. Okay. Brandy, I'm probably going to mess up your last name. I hope I don't. Brandy Masak, or Machak. Sorry if I messed that up. I probably did. So I've got videos for sugar. I've got them that you can listen to at night when you're sleeping, and they're subliminal, meaning your conscious mind can't hear the actual words and messages on there. Excuse me. Your conscious mind can't hear the words and messages on there, but your subconscious can, even while you're sleeping. And the idea is to flood your subconscious mind and install, if you will, new programs for how you think about sugar, how you look at sugar, what sugar means to you. So on my tracks, sugar now means poison, because it kind of is. Refined sugar kind of is poison. It does lots of really nasty things to your body. And at the same time, it talks about being attracted to things that are much more natural, much more light. It's based, like most of my tracks, around compassion for yourself and so forth. So there are some for when you sleep. There's at least one for when you work. So check those out and see if those help you as kind of a first step. My guess is you're addicted to sugar because the sugar is giving you something you perceive you don't normally or usually have. So it could be distracting you from something that you don't want to experience, or it could be feeling something when you're eating it, like filling up a vessel inside of you that normally feels empty. And when you eat it, you feel like that vessel is full for a short period of time before you go back to the way you were before. So these are all really good and probably important things to look at when thinking and dealing with this issue about sugar. So I just want to make sure that I hit some of these other bullet points, and I'll try to go through them a little more quickly. That's a challenge for me, so that I can get back to some more of your questions and comments, because there's lots of them here, which is absolutely thrilling. So I talked about weight loss goals. And in order to be successful with weight loss, really being able to laser in on why you want to lose weight, right? Because you could literally have half a dozen people standing in front of you. They all want to lose weight, but it turns out that they want to lose weight for slightly different reasons. And it's important to have what neurolinguistic programming calls a well-formed outcome. So a well-formed outcome means it is possible, it is theoretically possible to achieve your goal. So if you, and I'm just trying to do two things at once here, which is always usually difficult. If you're trying to do something, like let's say, just make a person is 5'1", and they weigh, I'm just going to use extreme examples, they weigh 300 pounds. And let's say that they want to weigh, again, with extreme examples, they want to weigh 75 pounds. That may not be a well-formed outcome, right? Because weighing 75 pounds may not even be healthy for them at whatever their height is. And dropping that kind of weight may not be healthy for them. It may not be realistic for a variety of reasons. So it's important to know, number one, why you want to lose weight. Now, a lot of people might not even know. They just kind of say they want to lose weight because when they look at themselves, they feel disgusted. And it's important to drill into that reason and find out why. Okay, so maybe weight loss has to do with your physical health. All right, why do you want your physical health to improve? Sounds like a dumb question, but it could be that you are an athlete or want to be an athlete and you need to have more cardio ability, more stamina. It could be that you have a history of heart disease in your family and you're worried that something's going to happen to your heart. Okay, that's really important to know. But then the next question that I always want to know is, well, what do you want to do with your health? When you get to that point, what do you want to do with that? By being healthy, what do you want to do? Well, I want to live a long time. All right, well, good. What do you want to do with that long life? Sit on the couch? I don't think so. What is your dream? Because what we want to do is we want to link the most powerful emotional reason for losing that weight and getting to your ideal shape and size with your steps to get there. If it's just, lose weight, it's not that powerful. And we want to make sure there's a well-formed outcome, that the steps you're taking can reasonably get you there. One of the things that I say to people is, I'm not promising you a rose garden. I'm not saying this is going to be the easiest thing you've ever done. But I also believe that goals that are worth achieving, goals that have powerful underlying emotional reasons to us, mean more when you achieve them because they're hard. So, as I said at the beginning of this conversation, somebody asked me about the rate of success. And I said the people who are super motivated, who are persistent, are more likely to be very successful than the people who just, want to listen to an audio track once or twice a week and not really do anything else. So I see this as a holistic approach that starts with the mind. So thank you for that question. Or it wasn't a question, I was just trying to go over one of the bullet points. So let's jump into some other comments, questions here. Okay, this is super cool here. Shannon Marie Routledge says to Andy Pandyfish, "Oh my God, that's amazing. He talked about losing 19 kilograms by listening to the audios over a 4-month period. I'm lost for words. I never tried audio hypnosis for weight loss, but I'm willing to try, and I'll have a result." Yeah, you will have a result, especially if you stick with it. Give a little thing there. And for Andy Pandy, what I want to say to you is, you just inspired somebody. By sharing your experience, you just inspired somebody. And one of the things that I want to say about that is from my own life. In 2003, I was diagnosed with Lyme disease and leukemia on the same day. And what I wanted more than anything is I wanted to read a story about another flesh and blood human being who had the same kind of leukemia that cured themselves. That's what I wanted more than anything. That meant more to me than pages and pages of statistics and what the experts had to say. So what you just did is you inspired somebody. And I think that is absolutely awesome. And I think it would be great if we all did more of this, if we all shared whatever it is that we did that was a success for us with our friends, with our family, with the world, not in a braggadocio way, but knowing that we're inspiring other people, which deserve applause. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, I'm just looking for some more questions. Someday, if the channel gets really big, I'll have somebody who can go through these, and I won't have to go like back and forth between this. Okay, here we go. Val Girl. Welcome to the channel. Maybe you've been on other broadcasts, but I don't recognize your handle. So if this is your first time here, thank you. Can this also be related to past lives? And do you work with that as well? Yes, I do. Absolutely, 100%. So for the last 14 years of practice, I have considered hypnotic regression to be kind of at the core of the tools that I use. Because again, I say, whatever you're dealing with, there is a root cause. And if you are able to deal with that root cause, you can more successfully deal with, especially with stubborn issues, stubborn cases, because you can eliminate that as a motivation for your subconscious mind to engage in a particular kind of behavior, a particular kind of way of trying to protect you. I actually have on my calendar of upcoming things, and remember, suggest upcoming topics. Did your weight issues begin in a past life? So Val, you might want to be looking for that one, because I'll be talking about my direct experience working with people where we found for sure that their weight issues did begin in a past life, and how we cleared those, and some other goodies on that topic. So that's definitely coming up. Here we go. So I want to, here, let's just click on this one. Gia Girl, where is she? She said, I lost a lot of weight in 2014 and 15 due to low iron, but when I started taking iron supplements, my appetite came back and so did the weight. All right, so I guess I'm going to assume that due to what your doctors say, due to the health height and weight charts, that you are over your healthy weight. I'm just going to assume that. That may not be correct, but I'm going to assume that. I'm going to assume that when you say your appetite, it means your appetite is stimulating you to eat more than you need to be healthy, and now you're becoming unhealthy because you weigh more than what a healthy weight should be. So, all right. So I'm going to say that when you were iron deficient, there was a problem, if you will, that led to lowering your weight. But you didn't necessarily lower your weight because of a healthy reason. It sounds like the weight got lowered because of an unhealthy reason, that you were deficient in iron, which isn't good for your body. But at least temporarily overrode whatever else is going on that causes you to be overweight. So I would, in my mind, and again, this is just me speaking, I'm not a doctor, not a psychotherapist, but I would put that kind of out, and I'd be wanting to know, why is your appetite stimulating you to eat more than you need to be healthy? Why is it creating an unhealthy overweight? And I'd approach it from there. Because I think the iron thing, that sounds like an unhealthy mechanism that overrode another unhealthy mechanism to give you a temporary experience of being in a perhaps more normal weight. I hope that makes sense. Okay, Dara. Hello, Dara. Welcome from Ireland. The family mind makes sense to me. How would you approach this in a hypnosis session to pinpoint the occasions when this learning occurred? Should I regress when hungry? All really good questions and comments. So what I'd like to say first is, with a family mind, the first and simplest thing that I like to do is I like to, let's say, I'm just going to make all this up, okay? Let's say that your grandfather was significantly overweight and that you and your grandfather were very, very close when you were growing up. What we'd want to do is, in hypnosis, maybe with your spirit guide, in your sacred space, we would want your grandfather to be brought to the sacred space so that you can reconnect with him again. Hug him, tell him you love him, let him tell you he loves you, so forth. Then we'd want to have you standing, this is all in your mind, standing maybe 3 feet apart from each other and just facing each other. And then visualizing a cord that connects the two of you through food, overeating, and overweight. And that may go from belly to belly, it may go from heart to heart. It's gonna come to you as a cord connecting the two of you. Then we have you ask your grandfather if there is a new way, a healthier way, a more life-affirming and positive way the two of you can connect. And he's going to say, of course. And now that may be on, you both love to fish. It could be that you both love sports. It could be that you both love to ride horses. It could be that you both love the sense of humor. Whatever it is, we have your guide produce a new cord, thicker in diameter, shiny and new, and we have your grandfather plug his end into some part of his body, and you plug your end into some part of your body. Once that's done, you then ask him, now that we have this new, more powerful, more life-affirming connection to each other, do I have your permission to disconnect the old one that was based upon overeating and overweight? He's of course going to say yes. He pulls his end out, you pull your end out of the old cord, and then you take that old cord together ceremoniously and you toss it into the sea. You toss it into a campfire, or you give it to the spirit guide. And now you kind of commune or connect with your grandfather in like a celebration of this new way of connecting with each other. The other way of going about this would be something like you alluded to, which is a regression to cause. You tell the subconscious mind, go back to the origin of this eating issue, and you see where you are, what's happening, what's going on. Now maybe you're trying to fit in with your family, or maybe you go into a past life. And from there, now you'll know what to do in order to sort of rewind that or heal or reprogram that particular concept or issue. So awesome question as always, Dara. Thank you. Let's see how. Scrolling down here, scrolling down. I'm trying to, there's some good questions here, but I'm trying to see if I can find somebody that I haven't addressed yet. Zara Z says, which is very nice of you. Perfect timing, great stuff. Thank you. Here we go. Julie Ann Warner. I'm an emotional eater. Often I know I'm sabotaging myself, but I just don't care at that moment and keep stuffing my face. How do I stop? Okay. So Julianne, I don't know if you tuned in later or if you were around for the whole thing. If you tuned in later, you may want to go back later and watch the whole thing because it's saved as a recording. But I talked about starting with compassion for yourself. Then I talked about self-love and how you're allowed to love yourself even if you are overweight. You are allowed to love yourself even if you slip and eat something that you otherwise didn't want to do. So, emotional eating implies that you often find yourself in a state of emotional distress. And as a way of coping with that emotional distress, you emotionally eat. Now, chances are very good that it's the same things over and over again, a kind of pattern. It could be relationships, it could be finance, it could be your physical or mental health and well-being, or it could be a combination of those things. It could be a certain time of day, and it may be certain kinds of food that are your go-to. So, we need to figure out what is the emotional distress that you're dealing with. Is it feeling like relationships never work out? Is it feeling like you never have any money? Is it feeling like you're sick or there's something going on for you with your mental health? And we essentially want to, you could go back to the origin, right? When this all started, clean that out. That's what I would do if I were working with you. You can also flood yourself with the opposite of what that is. So if it's a relationship issue, you might want to flood yourself with self-love. If it's a finance issue, you might want to flood yourself with the tracks that I have about abundance and wealth and money. Because so much of this has to do with us shutting down and pushing away opportunities that are always there, how we feel about ourselves, and so forth. I do have specific tracks on healing, stopping emotional eating. So I would suggest you start with those. And for everybody on the broadcast, those who don't already know the distinction, there are sleep hypnosis videos that are subliminal, meaning your conscious mind can't hear it, but it floods into your subconscious mind while you sleep. Those same tracks often are available as audible ones where you can actually hear my voice, some that you can use at work, and then there's other tracks which you could use kind of as a booster. So if you know that after I have dinner, when I start watching TV or whatever I'm doing at 8 o'clock at night, that's a danger zone for me. Between 7:30 and 10:30 when I go to bed is a danger zone, let's say. Okay, so in the middle of that danger zone, put on a shorter track of mine. I have a dual weight loss hypnosis track. So different suggestions coming into the left ear, then come into the right ear at about the 9-minute mark. It's only 20 minutes. And you could make a deal with yourself. You could say, I feel like emotionally eating right now. I'm upset about something. Well, before I do that, I'm going to listen to this 20-minute track. If at the end of the track I feel like I want to eat, I'm going to give myself that ability to go eat the ice cream or whatever it is. Chances are really good. If you actually listen to the track, you're going to be able to cruise right through that momentary, urge. You're going to be able to, I love this term, surf the urge. You're going to be able to surf the urge. That's what I say. That's what I think. And I wanted to say, my dog is very happy with all the questions today. His name is Samson, and he's pleased. He wanted me to communicate that message to you. So thanks, Julianne. I appreciate the question there. Let's see. We're kind of winding down. I want to take another question, and then I want to talk about strategies and tools. Okay. This is a great question, and it kind of leads to Nicole Wright. She says, should we specifically start with the self-love tracks? So this is awesome because it leads right into the piece that I wanted to talk about with strategies and tools. I actually think that unless you know that you feel like you just don't feel good enough, you don't feel like anybody loves you, you have a history of relationships breaking up where the other person's breaking up with you, then you might want to start with the weight loss tracks. And I would always recommend that people start with 2 of the weight loss tracks. So the easiest thing to do is to play one while you're asleep, because you're sleeping anyway. You might as well have it playing in the background and begin flooding your mind repetitively with all of the affirmations, with all of the suggestions that are going to go along with that, many of which, incidentally, are going to be about self-love, because I know that that's a component of this. And do something during the day. It could be that short 20-minute track, and I've got a couple of those. It could be a 1-hour track where it's all audible, and you just check out for a period of time. And this is going to do a couple of important things. Most notably, it is by definition going to move you from the sympathetic response of the autonomic nervous system. In other words, it's going to move you from fight or flight to the opposite of that, rest and digest. And that is going to take maybe cravings down, and it's going to help you feel clearer, more comfortable, and more balanced to live the rest of your day. It's like taking a vacation in the middle of the day. So I would recommend you start, or anyone else that's interested in this, with, say, a nighttime track where you're listening to it while you're sleeping. Could be a subliminal one, could be an audible one, whichever one works for you. And it could be one that has music, it could be one that has rain. Again, whatever works for you, personal preference. And then during the day, carve out 20 minutes or carve out an hour, or once a week do an hour, and the other days during the week do the 20 minutes. So you're boosting or reinforcing this during the day. So awesome question, and it led in perfectly to these strategies and tools. So back to strategies for a minute. Ask yourself, why do I want to lose weight? And keep asking that question until you get to the most powerful emotional reason why you want to lose weight. That's the motivator you keep coming back to over and over again, right? You know, if a person loves to travel and they want to hike to the top of Mount Olympus in Greece, well, that's their lifetime dream, and they can't do it when they're overweight, then we want to keep coming back to that, keep coming back to that, keep coming back to that, because for them, that's a super powerful motivator where the person sitting next to them might not care less about hiking to the top of Mount Olympus, but there's something else that's motivating them too. So come up with that. And then look at this from a holistic perspective. So we want to, first and foremost, help you change your mind, because when you change your mind, you change the decisions you make, the automatic decisions, the emotional decisions, and so forth. And that means that you have a different outcome. But also at the same time, and I put these on these tracks too, move your body. Our bodies were meant to move. If you're in a position where all you can do is walk slowly up and down the sidewalk, do that. If you're in a position where you can't leave your bed or your chair, hire someone, watch a YouTube video on how to do chair yoga. If you can go to the gym, if you can walk your dog through the forest or through the desert, wherever you live, do that. Swim, do whatever you need to do, but start moving your body. And begin focusing on the food you're eating. Right? Take all of this into account. So traditional weight loss programs typically are just looking at two things: calories in, the food you're eating, how much, and if it's a good program, what kind of food, and then calories out, exercise. And they're trying to get calories out higher than calories in. Well, it's leaving out emotional eating, it's leaving out stress eating, it's leaving out cortisol, which gets released when you're in a state of stress. And that's the third leg of the stool. But I would never just say, oh, you only have to do one leg of the stool. Now, some people might be successful with that, but I think long term, and I would say the most important leg of the stool is the stress one, the mind, because the mind's driving everything. But ideally, if you're firing on all cylinders, you would approach all three of those and do them simultaneously. I even have a client who had signed up for a group where they give you a sort of a buddy, along with saying, here's the food to eat and so forth. Now, it seems to me you could probably, if you have a friend who wants to do this at the same time, you have a buddy and you support each other. When one person's feeling weak, you call the other. When the other person's weak, you call this one. Maybe you go for walks together. But I love a holistic approach where you're coming at this from a variety of different angles simultaneously. So, great question. Great question. And in terms of tools, there are obviously a lot of tools on my YouTube channel, and I'm publishing more all the time. I'm coming up with more and more content. So if you, and where's my little thing here? There we go, that guy. If you subscribe, please subscribe to my channel, because then I'll be more or less popping up in your feed. If you click the bell notification icon, then you'll see everything that I publish. So keep looking there for these tools. I'm always thinking about different angles at coming at this, different lengths, different technology to embed on it. So like something called binaural tones or hemisync, different kinds of music. I also retune the music to a whole tone, which is very healing for people. I publish other things. So if you get on my mailing list at my website, BlueSkyHypnosis.com, or through this link, You get things that you wouldn't necessarily get on my YouTube channel, so please sign up for my email list. Please feel free to reach out to me. Send me an email if you've got a specific question. But be looking at all those tools, and at the same time, please consider other things that may be available to you, like a buddy, hiring a trainer if you can at a gym, making sure that you're eating really high quality food, making sure that you're drinking very high quality water in adequate amounts, looking at the effects of caffeine. So caffeine stimulates your autonomic nervous system, puts you into a stress response. That's why you feel like you have energy and you're so alert when you drink caffeine, because it's putting you into a stress response, which is also doing what? Yes, everybody knows now, dumping cortisol. And where's the ding, ding, ding? I keep hitting the wrong one. It dumps cortisol into the bloodstream. And the cortisol is causing you to do all of those things like holding on to fat. So we're about at an hour. I'm going to look at one or two more comments or questions, and then we will wrap up. And before we do that, before we get to that point, I want to give a little pitch for next week, and that is what I mentioned at the outset, and I think it kind of pairs nicely with today's topic, and that is how to stop having a fear of failure and how to stop having a fear of success and succeeding. I do think that these marry together nicely, and I think a lot of us deal with this. I mean, I work with pro athletes, people who are at the absolute top of their game. They have a fear of failure. It's not like you get to a certain point and it just goes away. But you can get better and better and better at dealing with that and managing it. And so next week we're going to talk all about this, and I hope you guys will turn up for that as well. And before I answer a couple more questions and we conclude, I just want to thank you again for really being so awesomely involved in this. And for those of you who've come back, from multiple weeks, and I notice a lot of these names like Dara and Dope Art and others, thank you so much for showing up like this. It's great to kind of see the same names. It's great to see new names as well. So let's see what we have here. And I want to, if I can, I want to get some new people into the mix. Okay, so Dope Art, I haven't answered any one of yours today. I want to just see what you got here. Hello, folks from Nova Scotia. I started using Peter's weight loss YouTube videos last fall. I still listen to a subliminal video for weight loss once in a while. I lost 50 pounds. Whoa. See if I get this right this time. Wow. 50 pounds. That is absolutely outstanding. Congratulations to you. And you said it was last fall. So we're in the 7th month here, so it's going on a year. That's absolutely fantastic. Congratulations to you. And I'm sorry, I forgot what the handle of the other person who talked about it was Pandy Fish, about losing 19 kilograms in 4 months. You are inspiring other people by sharing this. Thank you for sharing that, and congratulations to you. You did this. Way to go. And just awesome, outstanding. I love hearing these stories. Let's see. So Nicole is asking, Dope Art, maybe you can reply to her if you haven't already. She's asking, which videos did you start with? It's right there. Yeah, there's a lot of great questions here, but I'm just trying to zip down and see if I can see anyone who I haven't addressed today. Okay. Oh gosh, this is awesome. Here we go. Pam B, watching this while drinking coffee, just threw it away. That's fantastic. I think that's hysterical. So one of the things that I have learned about coffee and about caffeine in general, and I've never been a coffee drinker, but I've been a heavy tea drinker. Mostly herbal tea, but I drank, and I started to go crazy on Earl Grey, which is sort of full octane caffeine tea. About 5-6 weeks ago, maybe, I weaned myself off it because I learned that when you drink a cup of coffee, and granted tea has less caffeine than coffee, but it's the same thing. It might be black tea, I think is 50% of what you get in coffee, and green tea is 25%. That when you drink caffeine, it supposedly, and I saw an authoritative report on this, stops or reduces the blood flow to your brain by up to 50%. And I think, okay, so it could harm you by dumping more cortisol. It can make you more stressed out, because that's what it does. And it can reduce the blood flow to your brain by up to 50%. That was enough for me. That literally was enough for me to say, I don't need this anymore. And at a minimum, if I really felt like I had to do it, which I don't feel the need to, I could get decaf Earl Grey. But I'm totally happy with all of these other kinds of herbal teas that are available that have 0 caffeine. So congratulations to you. I think that's fantastic. Way to go. All right, let's see how. Let's see. We'll go for one more, if I can just sort of zero in on one here. Oh, I'm going to jump into this one, even though I didn't read the whole thing. Julianne Warner, thank you so much. Your answer to my question was so helpful. I know that I can love myself, but I don't right now. I need to start with self-love. Many thanks. All right. So here's what I would like to say to you about self-love. It occurred to me a few years ago, bear with me, folks, that when a person wins a lottery and the local news covers this person, let's say they won, I don't know, what, $20 million. They always show the same scene. It's a different person doing the same thing. They're screaming, huge smile on the face, jumping up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. Ah! So that's kind of a cartoon version in our culture of what we would call happiness, I guess, right? Euphoria, happiness, something like that. Well, it occurred to me that the piece of paper upon which is written the winning number, that piece of paper did not give them the feelings of happiness that they are now, cartoonishly exhibiting. What the piece of paper with the winning number on it did is it triggered those feelings. And that means those feelings of cartoonishly happy, of euphoria, already live inside that person. Because a piece of paper cannot physically give her the experience that she's now exhibiting for the local news cameras. Right? Is everybody kind of with me on this one? Does that make sense? So, I say it's the same with love. Other people can trigger feelings of love inside of us. And when they do this, it's one of the most beautiful things ever. A mother holding her newborn baby. A father consoling his son after he struck out in a Little League baseball game and telling him and holding him and telling him he loves him. What goes on between humans and dogs? What goes on between humans and cats and horses and so forth, animals that we love? Sending someone a note telling them that you're thinking about them and that you love them. A kiss, hands being held, a poem written. All of these things, the way we look at someone with the eyes of love. But I think what we're really doing by committing these acts of love is we're triggering the feelings of love inside that person. If they're in a position and place to accept what's being triggered, because maybe they're angry, maybe they feel depressed, maybe they're not allowing that to be triggered. What this tells me is that we have the ability to trigger these feelings for ourselves. This doesn't mean we never have the need to feel this from other people. Of course we do. It doesn't mean we never have the need to express these feelings, the triggering emotions and activities for other people. Of course we do. But if you have this ability to trigger these feelings for yourself, then you can do this at will. You can do this every day. You can do this multiple times during the day. And I say this is one of the ways you start to love yourself, because we are emotional creatures. We connect with how things feel. Somebody can tell me all day long that I'm a wonderful person, but if I don't let that in and feel it, it's not going to mean that much. And how do you do this? Well, I have found that if a person especially is in a hypnotic, aka a meditative state, where their subconscious mind is open, and they lead themselves maybe back in time or maybe to a beautiful place, and maybe they bring a beloved deceased relative or a pet. I'm talking about in the mind. Or maybe if they are a spiritual or a believer, they bring their creator, or they bring an ascended master, or they bring their spirit guide. These are some of the ways that you can create these feelings inside of yourself. And you can get to the point where you feel it flowing through your body. Right? When you can do this, I think, and when you keep practicing it over and over again, it starts to change you. I mean, one of the things that I was talking about with another client today was, and I mentioned this a lot, is there's one thing that all of us have to do with these smartphones every single day. And that one thing is you have to plug them into their source of power for them to have any use in your life at all that goes beyond a paperweight. Well, my next question is, what are you doing to plug yourself into your source of power, your ultimate source of love? So I hope that was helpful. I hope you guys will remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel, subscribe to my email list, and show up Friday, 5 o'clock. My intention, this is the 10th week of doing this, my intention is to do one of these Friday lives every single Friday, 5 o'clock Eastern. And we'll look forward to seeing you here next week if you've got the desire to do it, for how to stop the fear of failure and success. We'll see you then. Take care. Bye. Thanks for all the great questions. Really appreciate it.